Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartagone, ZP002. Back with me on my show, Jamie, my co-host, Jamie Franks. Welcome back, dude.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
It has been a minute.
It feels like it. I never know, because I'm sure to our avid listener, I'm sure it seems like we were just here last week.
It does see that. And you know, I gotta do a little bit of this to start off. Obviously, anybody that has been listening or watching this show, obviously, always thank you for your support. Anybody who has been paying attention to my personal life, my personal social media, and then even on the ZERT Facebook pages, obviously I put a note out there, a couple notes on my personal and then one on the ZERT page, that for the last 2 weeks I have been pretty much living at Yale New Haven Hospital after my father had to be rushed back to the hospital after a kidney removal due to a cancerous mass. I'm not going to go into a long, deep, dark hole about my experience there, because it would just be its own show. But he is finally getting discharged as of today. So today we are recording on Friday the 13th. And coincidentally, this show will actually be it will be aired next week. And the reason that is normally, you know, we've got a bunch of these shows already recorded, and we've talked about that before. And, you know, we just like to keep the flow of the show going, so we're always able to put out content. And I literally posted the last podcast yesterday. And so we are starting fresh, but we've got some good shows lined up, and today's being next week's airing is good because it's what's happening right now. At the time of this recording, we're supposed to see a large mass of problems tomorrow on the 14th. If you are paying attention to any of that, you know what we're talking about, and we're going to get into it further on. But yeah, so I have been very unfocused when it comes to content creation. I've got a list of videos that need to get put out, and we're just got to get back into it now that my father is being discharged today and heading to a rehab facility for a couple of weeks to build up his strength. And I'm going to get him one of these new Coffee and Chaos podcast shirts.
Sweet.
Boom. If you guys have already seen that, it's up on the website. So if you're interested in it, head over to the ZERT website, and you can pick yourself up one in a multitude of different colors and sizes. And we would probably have more coming out soon. But yeah, as far as the rest, obviously, you guys know we put out the shows on Thursdays, Spotify, Apple, anywhere else you pick up your podcast. Video version comes out later on the YouTube channel. But yeah, man, here we are.
Did you leave milk and cookies out for Jason last night?
I did. Nice. But I also left a big note that he's a pussy and Michael Myers is way better. I'm a Halloween guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't out Halloween me, bro.
I mean, I think I can. I played Michael Myers.
That's a bold claim.
I think I played Michael Myers for 3 seasons at a haunted house, and my shtick was not one person at the haunted house knew who I was, because I never showed up not as Michael Myers, and it was great. It was such a blast. It was really a fun time in life. You know, I was young, stupid, you know, I working as a volunteer for a haunted house hayride, and it was just amazing. Good times, really good times. So, but yeah, man, quite a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks in the country.
Well, yeah, World War III may have started last night. But
World War III may have started last night. I woke up to seeing Israel dealing out the business to Iran.
Yep, which I'm in favor of, for the record.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are. Well, I'm sure there's still probably people that are standing up against that as well. But yeah, quite a lot has happened. And while, you know, Israel's an ally and whatnot, that's not our own backyard. And we need to talk about protecting our own backyard. I don't know. Somebody made a post about backyard stuff, and we're going to talk about it. I think it was you.
Yep, it was. It definitely was. Yeah. It's
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's a theory that I have been handing out to people for many years. Let's see. It was when I was a water survival instructor that I started talking about it, and I mean that's been 10 years ago. So at least for the last 10 years, I've been boring people to death with this. So
right. Well, so if unless you are living under a rock, you are pretty in the know, and I'm talking about you, all of our awesome listeners out there. You are in the know about what is going on in LA. Now, you'll hear from some people like Jimmy Kimmel that there are no riots or fires or destruction, and they're just some American people that are mad and they're just talking about it. And then you will see every other media outlet posting unfortunately, it is probably going to be going down as one of those great pictures of the dude on the top of the car with no shirt on, with his flag and his mask. And you'll see that, and fires and riots and weird people with leaf blowers to blow the tear gas back.
it's not a bad idea.
I mean, maybe. It's wild out there. And we're going to get into a little bit of that and how it relates back to what Jamie said about being a prepared individual. Now, for all of you listeners, spoiler alert at the beginning of the show, I don't 100% agree with my friend and co-host today. And that's okay. And that's why we do this, is because we're all entitled to our own opinions and, what it looks like. But we're gonna kind of get into it. So the other day you put up a post, Jamie.
Yep.
You wanna lay into that a little bit, and we can kind of go from there.
Well, so I'm sure most of our listeners probably are familiar with the term like 3%er. And supposedly, I tried looking this up before, and I really didn't get anywhere. I've never been able to confirm the legitimacy of the statistic that created the term 3%er, but it comes from it supposedly is a reference to the fact that during the American Revolution, only 3% of the people, the colonists, because we weren't Americans yet, during the American Revolution, only 3% of the colonists like actively participated in the revolution, and that's all it took was 3% to take up arms and send the British Army, packing back to England. But whether or not that 3% statistic is true, I do believe, and this is my opinion. I guess this is not a provable statistic either, but it does seem like if that's true, then even back then, and 200 years ago, or actually 250 years ago, up through now, it does seem to me that most regular people just don't want to get involved. Most regular people can only be counted on to just keep their head down and hope for the best. And if the 3% statistic is true, then over half of the population, if the British Army had won the American Revolution, they would have just gone with it. And if the what is now the American side, if we won, then they would have just gone with it. And I do think that by and large, especially today, more so than 250 years ago, I don't know, I wasn't alive back then, close, but I do think most people that still kind of fall into that category of just keep their heads down and hope for the best. And a lot of people have become conditioned to think that like somebody else is going to come. Like I can call the police and they're going to come, or I can call the fire department and they're going to come, or I can call the National Guard and they're going to come, or whatever. And so like people are losing their willingness and their ability to stand up for themselves. So
All
My
right.
backyard theory.
Okay, but before we get into your theory, I want to just touch on that point that you just made,
Mhm.
because this is where we are aligned, right? We
Okay.
have stressed on this show numerous times that you are your own first responder. If you get a deep cut or whatever, you are not calling the ambulance because you need to provide yourself some kind of medical care, right? You may make that phone call afterwards, but you you hit your femoral artery or your brachial artery. You don't have time to wait for that to happen, right? You are
Right.
your own first responder. You get that tourniquet out, you get that tourniquet on, and then you call afterwards. um Again, grease fire breaks out on your stove, you're not calling the fire department, you're handling it at home. Right now, all of those situations do not require the use of lethal force. Now, and I'm going to say this because it's important, you also need to understand the laws of the state that you live in before you use a firearm to be your own first responder, right? You have to understand a little bit about that, because if some guy comes up to you and starts swearing at you and pointing his finger in your face, you can't just I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat the shit out of you and kill you. You can't just burn that dude down with a firearm in some states. You have to know the laws of your states before you take that matter into your own hands. So make sure you understand that. There are outlets out there for you to understand that. Whatever you choose, USCCA, whatever, US Law Shield is a ZERT affiliate. Understand the laws of your state before you throw down, or
Well,
else.
yes and no. I mean, even what you
Oh
just
no.
said is not an absolutely true statement. Like, and I'm not a lawyer, and so this is not legal advice, but defending yourself with lethal force is legal in every single state in the United States. Every single American in every state everywhere has an inherent right to self-defense. Like you
So
you
if
can
somebody is so you're saying if somebody starts yelling at you and
no,
they're
that's not
threatening
what
to
I
beat
said.
you
I
up,
said
okay.
in every state you can legally use deadly force to defend yourself in every single state. And I think in your example that somebody's yelling in my face, I don't think it's legal to use deadly force in any state. So it's really less about understanding your local laws and more about understanding the use of deadly force, which as a firearms instructor, that is a big thing that I harp on a lot because a lot of people don't understand that. But it really does have less to do with your local laws and more to do with understanding when you are and when you are not justified to use deadly force.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Justifying to use, like, some states have um duty to retreat. Some states have stand your ground. Some states have castle doctrine. Understanding what that means and if it applies to you in your state is important before you start taking that matter into your own hands. That's kind of kind of where I wanted to go with that.
Well, yeah, and but like with a lot of this stuff and with your like understanding your local laws, like it's that kind of crap that like has people like, oh no, if I put an 11-round magazine in my gun, I'm going to jail. Like, no, you're not. No, like nobody cares.
But hold
But
on, that's a very bold statement to say, man. There are people that do care, and there are people that get jammed up for that. I mean, it's a fact. If you are in a spot where you are not supposed to have something that is legally binding in your state, right? Meaning Connecticut hates AR-15s. So if I just go and buy an AR-15 somewhere and I bring it back to that state and they come and for whatever reason, I'm at the range or my house is on fire and I need to call the fire department and they come in, they see that, I will get arrested for that. And then they will go ahead and they will take that gun and they will take my permit and you can sit there and stand on your soapbox and say, again, the Second Amendment is my right to, yeah, great, until the legal people that hate you use you as an example. So you're saying that it doesn't matter and they're not going to do anything for it, but I don't know, go try and buy an SBR and see if you get as far as you can with it. I mean, if you don't follow the rules that are in place right now. Now, are the rules correct? No, but until they abolish some of them, like, this is where we're at.
Okay.
Dude, can you buy ammo in your state?
Yeah.
You can buy it locally, right?
I mean, I can't buy it internationally if that's what you're asking, but that's not.
Well, I mean, you can't a California resident cannot purchase ammunition from a website and have it shipped to their house. It has to go through an FFL. That's because people in California have made laws that said you can't do that. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't go and purchase a 15 round or a 30 round magazine in California. You know, the way that the law is interpreted there means you can carry them, but for whatever reason you can't purchase them.
Right.
Right. Yeah. It's the stupidest thing in the world.
Yeah,
Same
possession
thing
is not illegal. The way the law is written, you can't buy them or sell them. But if you have it, you can carry it and use it and shoot it in a handgun. Yeah.
Right. Like OTF knives. They're legal to buy in Connecticut. I can buy it, have it shipped to my house. Oh, you just can't carry it. So yeah, that's great that I could buy it, but if I carry it, they're like, okay, arrested, ticket, whatever it is. I mean, it's not going to be a major thing. You're going to pay a fine or whatnot. But when and here's where why I'm pushing back on this. I want to do the things that I want to do, right? As an American citizen. But if I live in Connecticut, which I do, and I start carrying a 15 round magazine and I get whatever, pulled over, stopped, whatever the case may be, but they identify that, they will, because it's Connecticut, try and take one more player off the board. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they'll turn me, who in any other state is a legal gun owner, but because it's Connecticut and they made this stupid bullshit law that says you can only carry 10 rounds, but you can carry 5 magazines, they will make me an example. They'll take my permit, and then that's one more piece off their board.
Do police officers get to carry more than 10 rounds?
Sure.
Okay. Well, then you have grounds to sue the state if they ever arrest you for that, because police officers are not a special elevated class of citizen. There's not a section of the Constitution that says police officers are this special elevated class that get to have guns and ammo and special privileges that everybody else doesn't, just because they decided to become a cop after high school.
Right. But the Constitution of the United States, while it should be a very blanket thing, is only as good as the state that you live in, which is why they dissect the Second Amendment. And so that's why that's why they're able to do it. I mean, saying police officers can carry more than that, I mean, great. That's a great statement to make, but I don't think it's a valid argument that's going to save anybody from getting in trouble because they're doing what the police officers
it is, but like, because a police officer doesn't have more of an inherent right to self-defense than you or I do. They don't have more of a right to defend themselves than I do. So why do they get more bullets? And if you're going to arrest me for that, then I'm going to make you, then I am going to make that point in court. But my point, the overarching point of my theory is that, I'll be alive to make that fight in court. And I won't be a dead body laying on the smoldering cinders that used to be my house. So,
right. But our whole point is they make these laws, right? And again, I'm folks, just so you're understanding, I mean, Jamie and I do align for the most part on this, but I wanted to point out some contradicting facts that I do know are an issue, especially if you live in certain states and you are bound by those bullshit laws. And Connecticut continues to make more and more laws. And yes, the obvious answer is, well, just leave Connecticut. And folks, listen, when I no longer have aging parents and things that are tying me to this one, then I likely will. But for the time being, this is where home is. And
Well,
they just came out.
for what that's worth, hang on. Like I do disagree with that stance. Like a lot of people do say that. And my favorite little meme that I think is a perfect illustration of that situation is there's this like meme. It looks like a kid drew it, but there's four guys in a rowboat, and there's two guys sitting up at the bow of the rowboat, and there's two guys sitting in the stern of the rowboat, and the rowboat is like sinking, and the guys in the stern are bailing water with buckets, and the guys that are sitting up in the bow are saying, "Boy, I'm glad that's not our side that's sinking." And I think that's a good illustration of like the situation of like the gun laws and stuff you're talking about in this country, and people that go, "Oh well, you're an idiot for living in California. You should just move." I don't think that's the right answer. I do think it's important for people like you and like me to stay where we are and fight these things. But I am just, I guess, way more inclined and okay with civil disobedience. Like I think I've long said, like in California for a long time, we had the bullet button on your AR-15. Like if you had an AR-15, it had to be this like weird special configuration. And it had to have this weird pistol grip thing on it and this weird stock that was connected to the, connected straight to the receiver. So it wasn't collapsible and all this other stuff. But if you had the bullet button, then you could have like a quote unquote regular AR-15, but it had the bullet button. And I've said that the bullet button probably set us, as far as like our gun rights in California, I've said the bullet button probably set us back 20 years. Because as soon as that like became okay and became like commonly accepted, that's what everybody did. I always say that everybody just put a bullet button on their gun and then went back to sleep for 10 years. And what everybody should have done is said, no, fuck this. I'm going to have my AR-15 and I'm going to have it in the normal configuration, and I'm not going to put a bullet button on it. And if you don't like that, like the flag says, fuck, come and take it. But people didn't do that, which kind of leads into my backyard theory point. But
Right now, and you think that if every Californian that wanted to buck the system rose up, didn't put the bullet button in, and just said, no, come and take it, that that the lawmakers would have just been like, okay, well, we can't really do this.
yeah,
And
I mean,
reverted back.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if they would have reverted it back, but you would put law enforcement into a position where I think they wouldn't enforce it. Like, when we saw that during COVID, that
some
some that like, during the mask these politicians wanted to put mask mandates in place, and then they wanted the law enforcement to be the enforcement arm of their mask mandate. And you saw police chiefs and sheriffs all over the country saying, no, we're not going to enforce that. So you put them into a situation like that. And, again, in California, as it relates back to the LA riots and stuff that are going on right now. I heard yesterday that an estimated 10% of the population of California is illegal immigrants. So, I mean, there's a case in point right there that if enough people just refuse to comply, the state's not going to do anything about it. So,
well, I mean, but the state is not doing anything about it. Well, I don't know. We'll get into that in a second. But what I see is when you start pushing back on some of these things, these politicians and these lawmakers, especially the ones that hate the Second Amendment and hate people like you and I, they just continue to find another way to fuck you over, strip a right, and make it worse, right? So go back a few years in Connecticut, a guy was OWB carrying, outside the waistband carrying. He gets pulled over. He gets arrested for it, goes to court and says, here's my permit. Nowhere on my permit does it say concealed carry. It says right to carry a firearm. I can choose how I want to do that. Now, the state said, fuck, there's really no way through that. There's no way around it. State police issued a letter saying, we urge everybody to conceal carry, but they didn't touch it. So for the longest time, we were able to outside the waistband carry. Now, I don't like it. I don't think it's great. If you like it, if you think it's great, do you, boo boo. Now, the first time Connecticut had the chance to close that loophole, they sealed that shit up with JB Weld and never looked back. And now they changed the permit to be where there's no more OWB carry. Again, for the last however many years, Connecticut figured a way around skirting this other. It was a Connecticut other, and it took the features of that made a rifle this, the features that made a SBR that, and the features that made an AOW this, and they mixed them all together, and they created this new Connecticut other, and it was basically a legal SBR. It was amazing, and we had that for a couple of years, and we all bought them, and then sure enough, this asshole Lamont and this piece of shit Murphy changed the law and said, nope, no longer. You have to do this or else now you're a felon. And there's nobody to push back. And there's nobody to fight because all of the people making these laws are all Democrats. So,
well, I mean, and that you also you landed on another good point. A couple of years ago here, they said, "Oh, okay, no more AR pistols. If you have an AR pistol, you're allowed to keep it. You just have to go to the DOJ website and submit all these photographs and submit all this stuff, and we'll issue you a serial number, and you have to get the serial number put on your gun, and then you have to take a picture of that, and then you have to send that back to it." And like, I think they gave a year-long grace period, and like on the evening news it'd be like, oh, there's only 6 months left remaining in the time to do it. Oh, there's only 3 months left. Oh, the deadline's tomorrow, blah blah blah. And out of the however many million people live in California and however many thousands of AR pistols that there are in California, I think they said that like 200 people like register, and guess what's happened? Nothing. But I imagine the guy you're talking about, I imagine he's rotting away in solitary confinement in the basement of the Rock, where
which
where
guy?
the guy that had the permit that didn't say concealed on it.
Oh, no. He
so
fought that. He fought that,
so he's
and
good. Okay,
wait, he fought
I guess
that
I'm
and
right.
won. Well, no, you're wrong. He fought that and won until they changed the law. And now he can't carry because the law now in Connecticut is you have to conceal carry. So he won the battle and lost the war. So again,
what if I have a gun in an OWB holster and I do like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and I just put a sock over it and then it's concealed, right?
Sure, give that a shot. Give that a shot in California. Hey, listen, I think you should push the limits of all you want in your state, and that's to everybody out there. Push the limits. And if you ever get into the situation where you get jammed up, I want you to stand up on that soapbox and use all of the arguments you can. And I hope that you can change the law. We are busy trying to fight that through organizations like Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition. They're attempting to fight these lawmakers, but the bottom line is you can't buy a 15-round magazine in California because no matter how many times you try to get that thing overturned, California shuts you down. Now, it doesn't really matter because you guys can buy them elsewhere and carry them all day long, and apparently it's not a problem.
Well, yeah,
but,
and this is an issue that I have with the court system because apparently that has been overturned, but I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah,
I don't speak legalese, so they're like the magazine ban was ruled unconstitutional, but then the Department of Justice filed for an injunction, but then the injunction got stayed, but then the stay on the injunction got overturned, but then the overturn on the stay got stayed, and then the stay got overturned with the stay with an overturn with the injunction. So supposedly the law has been deemed unconstitutional and has been overturned, but somehow that's been like 9 years ago and it still remains in place until something that's supposed to happen soon. But yeah. I don't
And
know,
I
but
totally agree with you. The judicial system is broken more than your original Nintendo NES system, like just completely broken.
my
Y'all
original, I don't know if this makes your point or
don't tell
shits
me.
on your point, but my original NES system works perfectly fine. I got Santa Claus brought it to me in 1986, and it still
You
is in
still have
perfect
that?
working order. No, because my fucking ex-wife, took
Oh
it when we got
no.
divorced. Santa
Oh,
Claus
that's
brought it
horrible.
to me in 1986, and when we
And she
got
got it in the
divorced, she
divorce.
took it.
That's horrible.
And so it's at her house now, but it still works. So
Okay.
I don't know how if
I,
that reinforces your
well,
point or not.
as long as B gets to enjoy it. But so here's and then we're gonna move past this part of it because we could probably go back and forth with this. Um, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has ordered Pam Bondi, or I guess asked Pam Bondi to look at all of the anti-Second Amendment rules that were made during the previous administration and to find out what's unconstitutional and move it forward. Even he does not have the power to change some of those things. It's got to go through the court system, and the court system will continue to just bog down. And there's a couple of people that are smarter, way smarter than me when it comes to this. And the reason why, like, a state like Connecticut will not get it, it's because you heard the ninth court and the 12th court and the third court district and whatever. It really comes down to what district you are in for that Supreme Court and how they will hear it. But it has to go to the Supreme Court and it has to be ruled by them. But what they do is they see it, they kick it back down to the state court, and they're like, rule based on Bruin. Now, Bruin should fix everything, but it doesn't. And then we're still in this round robin situation where we do not move this thing forward. Now, with all of that legal bullshit crap out of the way and understanding that you can go out there and Kyle Rittenhouse this all you want, but understand and remember that even Kyle Rittenhouse, while he came out of it on the good side, went through a little bit of hell to get there. It Make sure you have some creative articulation if you are going to become a rooftop Korean during these times.
Well,
Protect
I
what's
mean,
yours.
so you you don't have to be creative. You just have to make sure you're right. But I mean, you just hit on several good points.
Right.
Like the rooftop Koreans, to my knowledge, none of them, like, they were shooting people. To my knowledge, none of them went to jail. I'd have to double check that to be sure, but I don't think. And none of them got their guns confiscated that I know of. Again, I haven't dove deep into that one. Kyle Rittenhouse, yes, he went through the court system and he came out of it fine. But I hate to be cliche about this, but I mean, this is it's better to be judged by 12 than carried
No,
by 6,
you're
kind of thing. And he
yep,
came out of that alive. And
yep.
one of the other case points that I was going to make, talking about my backyard theory, was Mark and Patricia McCloskey, who they lived in a uh, um,
Was that the
like an
St.
up
Louis people?
yeah, an upscale neighborhood,
Yep.
and the Black Lives Matter protest
Yep.
decided they were going to go through their, like, break down the gates of their gated community and walk through the community. And so they stood out in front of their house with guns and protected their home. And then, they
Did they
initially,
get?
well, they didn't get
Yeah.
arrested, but they did get charges brought against them. But they, number one, they lived. Number two, their house survived. And number three, at the end of the day, they both they pled guilty to 2 very low level misdemeanors, and that's all. So
But why? Why should they? I mean, according to your that theory, they shouldn't have pled to any misdemeanors. Why did they get jammed up if they were just doing what we are saying they should do? Right. I mean,
well,
if
what
I
they
remember correctly, because they were a meme, right? Like they were a
yeah,
big meme for a while. Like they
yeah,
were out on their in their driveway in my pink polo shirts and like white shorts, and I think they were just brandishing a firearm at that point, right?
Yeah.
And
So
maybe
that
that's what they got
well,
charged for.
no, that the only when all the dust settled, um, the low level misdemeanors that they both pled guilty to was because they actually pointed their guns at people.
Okay.
That was and again that goes into understanding the use of deadly force and understanding those things. I you know we haven't even gotten to my theory yet, but my theory does not dictate that you should set up a machine gun nest in the middle of your street and start mowing people down.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so they did not fully understand escalation of force or the use of deadly force, and they, like I said, when the dust settled on those two, they basically what they did was ultimately found to be right or at least not wrong, except for the fact that they did point their guns at people,
Right,
and
because
you can
that
only do that under certain circumstances, and you have to understand use of force and escalation of force and all that.
right. Yeah, obviously that is a threatening manner, and at that point
Hmm.
one of those people that was protesting could have raised their firearm and actually shot, and might have been justified in that shooting because they were now being threatened by a firearm. So, you know, going back to the understanding the laws, it is definitely important to understand some of those laws when it comes to what Jamie was just saying, use of force, escalation of force.
Yep.
So let's get into your theory a little bit here.
So the kind of what we've been talking about, it really only works if kind of everybody were to do it. And so that's kind of a fantastical pie in the sky notion
Right.
because everybody's not going to. Like I said, a lot of people have either lost the ability, that your wolf's teeth have been uh, filed down, so you're not able or you're not willing to stand up for yourself. But my whole thing is the one thing you referenced, Jimmy Kimmel and him saying that the protests like aren't really happening and whatever, while people are dancing on top of Waymo cars that are burning. Um, like in this example, the protests in Los Angeles and all the stuff that you're seeing on TV and all the cars burning and all that stuff. Like one of my friends was actually down there this past weekend, and I talked to him yesterday or day before, and he did say like the protests like they are happening and shit is burning and like people are throwing bricks and rocks at cop cars and all that kind of stuff, and that there are police officers and riot gear deployed and National Guard and Marines and all that stuff. That all is actually happening. He did say though it is like really isolated to the actual like downtown
Right.
area of Los Angeles, which
Where it's a spectacle.
yes, and if you actually look at a map, like if you pull out a Rand McNally Road Atlas, who knows what those are anymore?
I do. I got one
Um,
on my truck.
yeah, me too, because I'm a prepared individual. But like if you open your road atlas to Los Angeles, it's a humongous area. But the downtown area of Los Angeles is a relatively small area, and it is basically all um, commercial.
Right.
In the actual like the middle of downtown Los Angeles, I don't even think there are apartment buildings down there. It's as far as I know, it is all commercial property that's down there. Uh,
Okay.
so so that's a little flaw in my theory as it pertains to the LA riots, but that are going on right now. But the LA riots of 1992 are a better example. The riots in Ferguson back in 2014 is a better example. And then obviously the ones we just referenced with the Mr. and Mrs. McCloskey
I was living
during
in St. Louis
yeah,
during that time too, by the way.
because those are all the ones I just listed off. Those are all uh, protests that became riots, that became looting, that just became fairly
Right.
large scale civil disobedience in residential areas. And so my backyard theory is that if everybody everywhere, if you looked out for your own backyard all the time, then these kinds of things cannot happen. They would be over before they began. And my other statement is that Ferguson, BLM, Antifa, none of that has ever happened in my neighborhood. None of that has ever happened on my street, and it never will. And it's not because of who the governor is, and it's not because of who the president happens to be, and it's not because of the presence of National Guard, and it's not because somebody called in the Marines, which I don't agree with, and it's not because of the police response, and it's because me and my neighbors will not allow it to happen on our street. If a protest broke out, my neighbors and I would secure our street, and we would make a show of force on our street. And you know what? Maybe all it does, it's kind of like the thing where, like, if a bear's chasing us, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. I don't want the protesters to just go to the next street up the hill and burn that neighborhood down, but that's their problem. Like, I'm going to take care of my backyard, and my neighbors and I are going to continue to make sure that never happens on my street, and I feel confident that it never will. And if everybody everywhere got out there and put a stop to it, then this would never happen anywhere. But everybody has become too conditioned to think that it kind of exactly what is happening right now, which is a big epic fail. That, oh, well, the police are going to come. Oh, well, the National Guard's going to come. Oh, and now the Marines are going to come. And like, my stance is, if you're, as a person that's in the military, and now the military has been called up to deal with the situation, which I don't agree with. If you're not willing to stand up for your own backyard, and you're not willing to stand up for your neighborhood, and you're not willing to take a risk to save your own life and livelihood and community, then don't expect me to. And that's
Okay.
my backyard theory.
So
Everybody everywhere needs to protect their own backyard. You don't have to form a posse and go patrol the streets. Everybody watch your own backyard, and everybody draw a hard line in the sand and say, not in my backyard. And if somebody comes in your backyard, you take care of that. And then the person in the next
okay.
backyard, they'll take care of that. And
So
then
I mean, and obviously I agree with that. Like, you're gonna protect what is yours, right? But I guess so. Mob of dudes walks down your neighborhood area where you're at. What is happening? I mean, is there a group of you that go out and set up barricades? Do you all stand there in plate carriers? Like, how are you disbanding that, like, without escalating that force to become, now there's 100% going to be a response that comes in, and when it
what do you
does,
mean a response that comes in?
well, a police force response that comes in, and now it's like, okay, what's happening here, and now that needs to be handled. So what does that protecting your backyard look like in your neighborhood?
Well, if the
Is there a
police show
plan?
up, we're done, right? Because they're all heroes and they're going to save the day, right? So that it's like, so
Again, I'm not,
with the angry
that
mob
wasn't the
coming down my
question.
street,
Right.
the police don't respond. But now when I step forward to protect myself, since they won't, then they're going to come
No,
arrest me.
no, no.
But,
But I guess you missed the question that I asked.
yeah.
What does that look like? What does the protecting your backyard look like to ensure
So
that it doesn't become that?
yeah, so just so we're not living in fantasy land. So, and to cite, real things that did happen, like, I'll go back to the McCloskey example, where these protesters and potential rioters targeted that neighborhood on purpose, because the demonstrators, the fucking low life criminals, they targeted that neighborhood specifically because it was upper class white people, quote unquote, that lived in that neighborhood. So we're going to take our BLM protest and we're going to march it right through the middle of this white neighborhood, this rich white neighborhood. It was a gated community. They broke down the gates, and then they started to march. Well, these people came out on to their yard. They stayed on their property. If you see a picture of their house, they did have like these big second store balconies. I think that would have been a better, uh, they, legally speaking, that may have been a more legally defensible position to have come out on your balcony and not to have gone out into the yard. But that's, again, I guess that goes back to your point of understanding whatever your local laws are. If your state
Right.
has castle doctrine or doesn't, or has duty to retreat or doesn't. But yes, they, at the end of the day, they ended up pleading guilty to a couple of low-level misdemeanors. But what they did worked. They did step forward, they did step out, and they did say, "You're not coming into my yard." And they did make a show of force, and that show of force was backed up by the implied threat of lethal force, which is that's all good. Like we already talked about, the only thing they did wrong was actually pointing
Right.
their guns at people. But this goes back to, we talked about the use of deadly force and escalation of force. And in California, um like I can't use you're not supposed to use deadly force to protect property. You can only
Right.
use deadly force to protect a life. But in the United States, I think a lot of people, I think across all walks of life, because we, you know, as different as we are as Americans, I think we do all have common threads, and we have all, to one extent or another. Most of us have grown up, thinking that America is the land of the good guys, and uh, you know, in this country, we fight fair, and there's this whole thing about like, oh, if you shoot somebody in the back, you're a coward, and so and if I want to fight you, I have to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, sir, would you like to engage in fisticuffs?" And then I have to wait for you to turn and face me. And I can, I've seen Top Gun, so I cannot fire until fired upon. And like all of those things are fallacies. If I see a dude that looks like Mike Tyson with a ball peen hammer in his hand, about to walk up and crush the back of your skull with it, I don't have to wait for him to do that. I can draw my firearm and kill him before, and I can shoot him in the back, and I don't have to say, "Excuse me, good sir, halt." Uh,
Right.
I can take that person's life because he is about to do serious bodily harm or death on you, and that's pretty much legally provable in this little hypothetical situation. So, as it pertains to like defending your home, when you have a mob of people coming down the street, and I'm just, in my house most of the time, it's just me and my teenage daughter. So if I see a mob of people walking down the street, and some of them have bricks in their hand, and some of them have Molotov cocktails in their hand, I don't have to wait for them to throw those bricks. I don't have to wait for them to throw those Molotov cocktails. In the military, we're taught the deadly force triangle, and all three legs of the triangle have to be present in order to use deadly force. And that's opportunity, capability, and intent. So if you're walking towards my house with a Molotov cocktail in your hand, you are displaying opportunity, capability, and intent, because a normal person doesn't walk around with a Molotov cocktail in their hand. Now,
Okay.
escalation of force
Well,
is
hold
that,
on.
like,
Let me ask you a question about
yep.
what you just said there, because I think it's relevant. That's in military world. Does that is that hold true in civilian life? I understand the theory probably does in your mind, but I don't know if that translates over to civilian life. And I'm not, like you said, I'm not a legal scholar. I would have to really look at that. But a person walking down the street with what appears to be a Molotov cocktail, right? And that is important.
Mhm.
Allegedly appears, all things that will come into play. I don't know, or a brick. I don't know if that gives you the right to burn them down without some more clearer lines. But again,
No,
I'm
if when this is number one, to answer your question, yes, like if you are a
okay.
civilian person, I would definitely urge you to seek out training where
Oh, right.
uh, you can get some sort of certificate that says I have been trained in the application and use of deadly force. And so, if I'm ever in a courtroom, yes, I can point to the extensive training that I've had in the military that's documented, that this is what I was trained. This is the situation as I evaluated it. This is what was happening. And this
Right.
is the proportional force that I used. Right.
Okay.
So yes, it does play, but the catch is you have to have training on it, and you have to actually uh,
Right.
be
Taking a
able
get
to
right.
speak about it, and in a
Right.
way that, because yeah, you're right. If they want to have the John Molotov parade, through the center of my neighborhood, and so everybody has a bottle of water with a rag sticking out of it, yes, you're correct. I cannot mow them down. But as soon as one of those people puts a Zippo lighter to it and then raises their arm, I got bad news for your next of kin,
Right.
because now that has become a different situation.
Yeah.
But I don't have to
Um,
wait for you to throw it. and I don't have to stay in my house and wait for you to throw it. If I'm on my property, the way as I understand it, I cannot, just like the McCloskeys didn't, I cannot advance, towards this angry mob. But at the end of the day, I'm one person against 50 people or whatever it is. So what do I have as a force multiplier? I have the implied threat of deadly force, and then I actually have to be willing to use deadly force to protect myself against an angry mob. But there, what I was about to say is there are things you can do that are levels of force prior to you can't just go from 0 to deadly force.
Right.
You can put up things, again, like in my case, I don't know, the street that I live on is a private street. It's not, in other words, it's not a city street. Like our homeowners association maintains our street. The city doesn't come and do it. So I don't know what the legality would be of us erecting a barricade like actually across the street, but I could erect a barricade at the end of my driveway. And then if you cross that barricade, that's a level of in the escalation of force. If I tell you me standing here with body armor and a gun, just my physical presence, that's a level of deterrence, and that's a level in the force continuum. If I tell you to stop, that's a level of force. If I have pepper spray or tear gas or beanbag rounds, or if you have an attack dog, that would be awesome. Dogs are awesome. My dog is not going to attack anybody, unfortunately.
Right.
But like all of those things are deadly force, or I'm sorry, are escalation of force before you can use deadly force. But once, again, using the example of the mob coming down the street, if you just want to, have your sign and have your chant and march by my house, cool. Keep on keeping on, brother. And you want to yell at me that I'm Iquinsu Ocha.
You
You know
white
what that
devil.
is? White devil, white devil.
Right.
No, white devil. You can keep on keeping on. But the minute you put a Zippo lighter to that Molotov cocktail and raise your arm, now we're going to escalate. If you are within, again, what I was trained is within 12 feet. If you are within 12 feet and you have a brick in your hand and you raise that brick, now we're going to escalate.
Right.
And it's because the other thing with escalation of force and use of deadly force is that you can only use deadly force after all other lesser means have failed or cannot be reasonably employed. And so again, if I'm defending my own backyard and I am just one person, I don't have to stay in my house and wait for the angry mob to come burn it down around me. I'm within my rights to go outside and make that show of force and and attempt to make that deterrence. But then before you escalate, I guess your point at the very top of the show, you do have to understand these other things, and you do have to make a reasonable attempt to use these other levels of force before you jump straight to deadly force.
Right. Like the just imagine the picture of the protesters on the street in front of you.
Yep.
And there are two streets before the protesters that you can make a right or a left to evade the situation, but you choose to go straight and run through everybody. You're probably going to get jammed up for that if you can evade the situation, right? Like if and that's why I said, look up use of deadly force in the state that you reside in to understand what you can do. But I can't, go ahead. Were you?
No, go ahead. You can finish your thought.
I want to talk about your backyard theory as it pertains to being in a vehicle. One of the things that we saw during the riots of 2020, I'm sorry, the peaceful protests of 2020,
mostly peaceful
after Brother Floyd helped the nation there, was some of the stuff you saw on the highways, and you got all that awesome aerial coverage. So I want to talk a little bit about that and how it pertains to preparedness. So I just wanted to see, did you make that final point about that, like your neighborhood situation?
Yeah, and you're leading. You actually, this is a perfect lead in because it's referenced. So I think it's either yesterday or day before, but it was in response to the LA riots, and it was in response to what you brought up at the top of the show about how there are now other planned so-called demonstrations
Right.
in many other major cities throughout the U.S. Well, I'm not from Florida, so I think they pronounce it Brevard County, but it's I would say Broward County because I'm not from there.
No, 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 no,
But
no.
like,
So hold
uh,
on. There
uh,
there
uh,
is a Broward County
huh.
and there is a Brevard County.
Oh,
So
see,
yeah,
I
Broward
thought
County
this
was
was the
down where
New
I live.
Orleans versus Nolens kind of
No,
thing.
no. So Broward County was where I was from. Brevard County is North Florida.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah,
Well, you just learned me something. But earlier, when I said that, that police officers aren't a special elevated class of citizen, that's not me like talking shit about police. Like, they're not. It's just a fact of the matter. Like, some police
Just
officers like to
lawful
think
order.
that they are, and that's a different discussion for a different day. But everybody has the same inherent right to self-defense, and this police chief or sheriff, he's basically telling you the same thing that I've sat here and told you, that you do have a right to defend yourself. If somebody throws a rock at you or throws a firebomb, or like you just referenced, swarms your car, you do have the right to self-defense. Police officers also obviously have that right to self-defense, but so do you as the private citizen. And so, let's let him say it.
yeah. So we'll let this clip roll. Now, just one thing about Florida. When I lived in South Florida, it was called two things. One, it was a sunny place for shady people. And two, it was called the Gunshine State, because if I remember correctly, back then, it was the first state to hit 1 million concealed carry permits.
God
and
bless
obviously, Florida is, and it's also kind of shaped like a gun, and Florida is also very,
I never thought of that.
Very right. But here we go. Police chief.
If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired, because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead. We're not going to play.
Wow. All right. I mean, that's a pretty bold statement. I like it.
I mean, I love it, because what he just explicitly said, just like Joe Biden said, if you can go, you're allowed to take a double barrel shotgun and step outside your house and fire warning shots.
Well,
the president told us that.
yeah.
But this police sheriff official, in an official statement, said that if people mob your car, throw a brick, throw a firebomb, or point a gun, you may use deadly force to defend yourself against that. Like, here's a clip of this dude saying that. That does not only apply to police officers. Now, obviously, if you're not a police officer, you can't take people to jail. You can't run people down. But I will say, if you have a working dog, that, like, I have seen the biggest, toughest, baddest, scariest dudes turn into the biggest bitches as soon as a dog is entered into the equation. But
okay, but you're interpreting that as him saying the we will chase you down. I mean, he's talking about the deputies. Yes, he's obviously he's saying, like, if you try and stop a car, you're going to get run over and dragged. Okay, but
so you think he's saying that if a group of people mob my car, I have to wait for a deputy to come get in my car to run them down?
I'm 100% agreeing with you that if they circle my truck in Brevard County, I'm running through them, and and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do not think that he is saying if you point a gun at us, and the us meaning the people of Brevard County. He's saying us as the police officers are going to shoot you graveyard style. We'll notify your thing. I'm not.
But what he's saying is that deadly force is authorized to be used in those 4 specific situations that he just said.
So you're
deadly
assuming
force would be authorized if somebody mobbed my car, threw a brick at me, threw a firebomb, or pointed a gun at me. That's a police officer saying those are 4 specific examples where deadly force is authorized.
Okay.
And that does not, I don't care what anybody says, that does not only apply to people that have a little star on their shirt.
Okay. So the backyard theory, and that's what I kind of want to talk about here, because I just remember seeing mobs and mobs of people throughout the country back in the mostly peaceful protests of 2020. And cars being shaken and moved, and people on the hoods throwing shit at them. And this is the part of the whole backyard theory that I really wanted to focus on, and what it means as a prepared individual, right? We talk about getting from, what I have on me gets me to my car, what I have on my car gets me home. This is one of those times where, having a level up kit in your car could be dangerous if it's not secured some way.
Yep.
Right? Like if you have a pistol and now a mob overruns your car and now gets your rifle, you're now at a disadvantage. And in some states, you would become liable if that rifle is used. So figure out a way to secure it. Here's the time to remove all of the dumb fucking stickers on your truck that says Molon Labe, come and take it, SIG, Glock, I protect mine with 40 caliber, Smith & Wesson, get rid of all of them, right?
So here we have come back to total agreement. I could not agree more. I would like to remind everybody that shotguns are 50 state legal.
Yeah. So get rid of that shit off of your vehicle, right? That may be first and targeted by the mostly peaceful protesters that are maybe going to be blocking traffic tomorrow, which is from today. But when you hear this, it'll be 5 days ago. So,
well, let me interject real quick and just get your opinion on this, because you're talking about Smith & Wesson, come and take it, this vehicle protected by Glock,
snake,
Molon Labe, like all that crap. In today, this is not Jamie saying this. This is just a fact of the matter. A Trump Vance MAGA sticker will be just as provocative and make your vehicle just as targeted as any of those other things you listed. So where do you come down? Because, the First Amendment says I can have a Trump sticker on my car if I want it, son. But where do you come down on that? I would recommend take that shit off.
Take it off. Take all here. I recommend taking all the stupid fucking stickers off of your car.
Yep.
You just, I mean, there's no, what's the point of it, right? Like, you remember the first Jason Bourne movie when they get to the diner and Jason Bourne is like, I know that in this car I could get a gun if I need to, and I know that I can run flat out. Like, I know that I can probably find a gun in any car that has a stupid fucking sticker on it. That, like, in Connecticut, there's the CCDL. Everybody's got the CCDL stickers, and it's literally a pistol in the state of Connecticut that's a CCDL. Like, all it is a billboard for I carry a firearm, rob me. And I love what you love. Wear if you want to wear the shirts, wear the shirts. We talk about being a gray man or a Z man,
right?
Blending in.
And one of my favorite podcasters, he also likes to point out that sorry, that sounded way more sarcastic than I intended for it to. But but one of the other podcasters that I listen to, he makes the point that your car is like a little piece of you that you leave outside all night long. Like, so Chris makes a great point. Like, exercise that First Amendment, bro, and wear the shirt, wear the hat, and all that. But remember, your car is that little piece of your life that you leave outside all night long.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're driving down the street, and yes, you want to support Trump, Vance, go 2029, 2050, whatever. But understand that there are a lot of angry betas out there right now that are mad about Daddy Trump and Uncle Vance, and will
take advantage of that
Right.
weakness, like that.
Listen, they're a
'Cause they're
peaceful
not
group.
looking for but they're not peaceful, but they're not looking for a
I
head-on
joke.
fight.
No, of course
Um,
not. Why do you think?
so
Yeah,
they absolutely will take advantage of that opportunity to swarm
yeah,
your car because they think they have you outnumbered, or
right.
to burn your car hopefully when you're not in it, or break into your car at night or whatever. That like most of these people are path of least resistance people,
Now,
and
there are things out there that you can get. But before we get to the things that you can get to maybe disperse that crowd, um, try to avoid it. Right.
yeah, 100%.
I want to be very clear and and y'all to be very smart. Hopefully, because this show is 5 days, 6 days after this alleged 14th thing, but we may still see this going forward. Just steer clear of it. Don't give them a reason to take your shit or
100%.
do it. You don't need to get involved. If you are cornered, do what you got to do. Get out of that situation. If you happen to, I live in a
Well,
rural
hopefully you've taken a vehicle tactics class, because in your vehicle tactics class, they will teach you that driving away is never an option, and you must start shooting through the windshield and sticking your gun out the passenger side and shooting, and then getting out and going to the trunk and all this other extremely valuable, super awesome tactics that are complete bullshit.
listen, that's a conversation you can have with
Okay.
all the other instructors that
Yeah.
teach it that are better, but we don't need to get into that
Spoiler
one
alert:
now.
vehicle tactics classes are bullshit. But go ahead.
And hey, you can come at Jamie in the comments for that one if anybody
Please do.
disagrees.
Please do.
So there are things out there, right? And I can't remember the website, but there are well, airsoft is an option. There are less lethal little stun grenades out there that disorient, sound, whatever. And you can probably get those, and they're probably legal in many states. And if you're in a car and you find yourself in that situation and you just need to roll your window down, pull that pin and drop one of those concussion things out the window, that may give you enough time to get out of there. I'm not telling you to drive through. I'm telling you to get away from the mob.
And like, this is something I've said before, and this is just a hypothetical. This is not a suggestion, but like,
right.
When I don't know why, but I just do. I hate the term truck gun. To me, it sounds redneck and stupid to me. But in the vein of the truck gun, there is something to be said about having a short barreled AR with a Magpul D60, and if your car is swarmed, firing, again, to take a page out of Sleepy Joe's self-defense advice, like, if a crowd gathered around my car and I fired a blast out of my 10.3-inch Mark 18, but even if I don't shoot anybody, I'm pretty sure that's going to change a lot of people's minds, because that's such a loud and violent spectacle, that, like I said, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. Like, I think that's going to change, and maybe I could be wrong, but the equivalent of that is, now there's civilian legal, like, flashbangs and crash grenades and stuff like that you can get, which is interesting. And me personally, I am a huge fan. When in the military, when I've been, as part of training, I've been tased, I've been pepper sprayed, and I have not been shot with a beanbag round, but I was present for a live demonstration where somebody did get shot with volunteered to get shot with a beanbag round.
Okay.
A beanbag round will fold a person in half like a freaking lawn chair.
Yep.
Pepper spray, when I got pepper sprayed, I had a newfound respect for pepper spray. Like,
oh yeah,
pepper spray was way worse than I previously imagined.
And it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, it is.
Too. Oh, it's horrible.
And I lost a lot of. Have you ever been tased?
No, I have not.
I lost a lot of respect for tasers. After being tased, I was like, okay, I will never carry a taser for self-defense. Like, when I got tased, like, your muscles involuntarily, like, clench up for as long as the taser is going.
Right.
As soon as the taser stops, you're done. And for me, I'm not trying to sound like Chuck Norris. I just have a pretty high pain tolerance. And for me, when I got tased, my takeaway was I can take that. Like that's not that bad. I can deal with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I
My
definitely
takeaway from
agree.
pepper spray was fuck that shit. I never want to be pepper sprayed ever
Yeah,
again.
yeah. I mean,
But
one is pain control, and the other is just
yeah,
disorientation to the point where you just can't really function. Like you can't see. The moment you try and wipe your eyes so you can see, you're just making it fucking worse. Like, yeah, it's
but
brutal.
I became a big believer in pepper spray. And I do
Yeah.
understand that there's a certain percentage of the population that has like a natural immunity to pepper spray. I've been friends with one of those people
Oh wow.
that like going through the same training I went through. They basically gave him a pepper spray fire extinguisher right in the face. And I swear to God, it was like the little Indian with like one tear coming down. Like
Wow.
it did not affect him at all. It put me on my ass.
Yeah,
And it
I
did
heard if
not
you
affect
just
him at all.
eat, I heard if you
Um,
eat a lot of spicy food that you become
Well,
immune. It's your
he said because
superpower.
we have to go
Which is
through the
scary.
tear gas chamber in boot camp, and he
Yeah,
said the tear gas chamber did nothing to him, and
yeah,
he said that like the instructors like made him stay in there like extra time, and it just didn't. He said it smelled bad, but he
right.
said but the actual tear gas didn't affect him. And I can tell you when he and I went through that same force protection training and we got pepper sprayed, um, it like they pepper sprayed like they dumped a whole can into his face and
Oh
he
wow.
had no response, but he just had some kind of natural immunity to it. But you ain't guess what you don't have a natural immunity to, and that's a fucking beanbag round coming out of a 12 gauge shotgun.
Yeah,
I became a big believer in that.
yeah,
But sorry, like not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but there are legitimate good now less lethal options that are available for anybody to buy. I
yeah,
have I have beanbag round shotguns as part of my escalation of force plan, I guess.
yeah,
And
yeah.
God, like I'm sorry how whatever this makes me sound like, but I would love nothing better when I'm watching all these videos on TV. I would love
I get it.
nothing in this world would make me happier than to fire a beanbag round into one of those people's belly.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Listen, I don't blame you. There is some of that
the
shit where
guy
it's just
the guy
gets
standing
you
on top of the
crazy.
car with no shirt.
Yeah.
God, he is
Uh,
begging for a beanbag
yeah,
round.
he really is. But
Uh,
um, all right. Well, obviously we went over our typical hour with you guys today, but I told, even when Jamie and I were talking about this yesterday, obviously I saw his post on social media, and I don't hold things back from Jamie. I saw the post. I was just like, ooh, that's gonna hurt.
well,
But hold on, let me just, and I
sorry.
said, but we're gonna talk about it. And I told him, I was like, and we're gonna have a disagreement about it, because I don't feel quite the same way, because I'm always worried that, you know, big big government is always, they just don't give a shit, and they're going to try and take as many of us as they can, and that's so they're always going to look for a reason. But that's why we had a lot to talk about. We could
Yeah,
keep going,
yeah,
but we're not.
and just for everybody, like I do understand. My Instagram is at JF_shooter. If you want to read what I wrote for my backyard theory, and you need to understand that I understand that it is not completely realistic and that it is kind of an idealist pie in the sky kind of notion. Because like I said, it does kind of it for it to work as I write it, it would require everybody to do it, and everybody's not going to do it. And most people are never going to find themselves in a situation where it would be necessary anyway. But again, I like to lean back on real things that have really happened, and the McCloskeys are a near perfect example, because yes, at the end of the day, they did get found guilty of on a technicality, but at the end of the day, they were safe, their family was safe, and their home was safe. So what they did worked. And one last thing that I'll say, after I put my backyard theory out publicly on social media, one of my friends sent me a message, and he was a small business owner in an area where the BLM riots were or BLM, mostly peaceful protests, were taking place in California in the summer of 2020. And so he was not defending his home. He was defending his business, his privately owned small business. And this is the message he sent me. In the summer of 2020, I and many of my friends and employees took a stand and watched over our store during a period of time of civil unrest. The local sheriff and police department didn't really like the idea of us doing our own security. We were armed and we took a lot of precautions in securing the property and the building for 10 straight days and nights. I'm thankful we only had a few situations during that time period that could have gone south, but it all worked out. But we were given a very stern warning of what could happen if someone got hurt. We all knew the risk and we held the line and we took a stand and it all worked out. The show of force for sure was the answer.
It's good. It's good. When it comes to the Hatfield and McCoys there, the preppy couple out there with I believe the wife was like doing one of these, like the one-handed, maybe gangster grip sideways pistol thing. The one thing about them is, did every other house on the street get vandalized that didn't have two people outside of it? That was the first question. Second question is,
I don't know.
Did the mob see June and Ward Cleaver and turn around and run away? Or did they just continue on?
So, well, whatever they had planned and whatever they thought they were going to do, if you do look at the pictures and videos that are still out there from it, the demonstrators, the quote unquote protesters, they did have things in their hand that could have been weapons, could have been whatever. But once they saw, what'd you say, Ward Cleaver and
June and Ward Cleaver,
all they all did this. They all took their phones out and started
videotaping, right?
Videoing them. Oh, we're gonna get you in trouble.
And they did.
Yeah, sort of. But I mean,
so how ironic is that? The people that were there to do harm videotaped people protecting their own, and then those people got in trouble, and I guarantee none of the mostly peaceful protesters got in trouble. That's I'm going to leave you with that hard pill to swallow, folks. The people there protecting their own get videotaped by the alleged potential criminals, and they got in trouble. Shows you how fucked up the judicial system is. But as always, folks, you guys, I appreciate you. You guys stay safe. Jamie?
It's easy to be hard. It is hard to be smart. And in these types of situations that we have been discussing for the last hour and 15 minutes, you definitely need to do your homework and you definitely need to be smart and don't jump straight to the trying to be hard part.
Yeah. So. Okay. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay prepared. ZP002.